What's up, everybody? This is Phil Rogacki.
And I'm Jared Abergina.
You're listening to Two Tree Guys Podcast. What's up, everybody? Phil Rogacki here with a podcast of Two Tree Guys, mini episode of What's Your Story? And if you guys never listened to this, we bring industry badasses in to come talk about themselves, how they got in the industry, challenges along the way, and to hear their story, and then to give some wisdom and share to you guys out there listening today. Also, we got other episodes. We have our Gear Talk, where we bring in different products, different manufacturers, companies, equipment. We talk about their products and, how it's used, how it was manufactured, built, why, understanding the safety around those products. We also have our full-length episodes, and these full-length episodes are in Santa Rosa, California. So if anybody's traveling out there and do want to come get on one of the podcasts and drink some beer with myself and maybe Jared, we'll see, being a part of that, come out to California, we'll house you, feed you, and we'll do a podcast out there. And then lastly, we have our safety talks and our safety flashes where we go over industry-specific incidents that happen, where we talk about them and the controls and how do we make it better and safer for the next time for you guys out there. But today we have a What's Your Story with Jonathan Hensley that's going to be on here, a mentor to my co-host. You've never been a co-host, have you, Tanner?
No, never.
You're going to be a co-host today, a mentor of Tanner Bartree, right? Is that how we're going to do it? Bartree
or Bartee.
Bartee.
There's no tay at the end.
There's no tay.
Just like the Hensley. Come on, man. You're working with these last names, man. You gotta get them right.
I can't get them right. That's all right. I'm on first name basis for this. So we're going to get in and talk about your story. And where are you from? Let's go.
I'm from the hills of western North Carolina. And chasing my family roots back there to the 1740s, believe it or not.
Same area.
Family, same area. So I come from a long line of Sheltons, Robertses, and Hensleys, and the whole gamut. Raised there in those hills, grew up logging and farming, and so sawdust has been in our family for a long time. We've been making chips
For a long
time. And out of high school, I kind of aspired to be a tattoo artist, believe it or not. I thought that was going to be my career path because I was artistic, and I worked an apprenticeship at Ink Pot Tattoos in Lexington Avenue. Now, how many tree guys have done that, right? But unfortunately, Big Jim closed his shop down, and there wasn't but two in the area, so I moved on back to what I'd started with. Went back into the woods felling timber, production felling. And back in those days, wasn't really a lot of safety going on. We just run around in flannel shirts with no hard hats and souped up chainsaws and timber for production.
So was your family falling timber?
Yes.
Falling timber. So
my grandpa, my great-grandpa, and his great-grandpa were all
timber fallers.
Yeah. Banco Lumber Company came in. You can probably do a Google search and find Runyon Sawmill in Madison County, which was a big steam-generated sawmill.
And that is what employed a lot of people in the town?
Tons of people in the early days. And then from there, Banco Lumber Company cut all the big chestnut trees, the big stands of timber, the virgin stuff down, and they kind of moved out. Then we had some second growth, third growth stuff, and little sawmills started popping up all over the country. And, needed guys to supply it. So the only way to make a living in our area was tobacco, cut timber, a farm. That was it. Wasn't a lot of industry.
Sometimes you did all three, right?
Sometimes we did do
chewing tobacco, farming.
That's it. Yeah. The old saying is you ever spit off of a stump, you'll never return. But that's not the case. So, I've spit off of many stumps, and I go back and still spit off stumps.
Yeah, good. So, getting into this, you really didn't have many options. What was getting into tattooing, because you're an artist, but what made you want to go that route? Was it because every single person in your town was doing the same thing and you wanted to do something different?
Absolutely.
Or you just enjoyed it? Or
all three. I'm a maker. You know, I don't know if you've ever been around makers, but makers got to make things. We got to make stuff. So being a maker,
I've never heard that term.
just wanted to make art, you know. Hanging around some buddies of mine that was,
That's called classic pizza here.
I guess,
Even.
for lack of better words, was around a rough biker group growing up. And he was exposed to guys with tattoos. So he started wanting tattoos, and he was a good artist, and he got me into it. But I took it to the next level. I said, you know, I'm going to get an apprenticeship. I'm going to do this for a living. But like I say, Asheville at the time had 2 tattoo parlors. And getting an apprenticeship was an amazing thing, but it was short-lived, you know. And you got to devote a lot of time to that.
Have you given that guy any tattoos?
I haven't.
Maybe there's still time.
Yeah. I would take one from you, man.
Yeah?
I'd take a tattoo. So you're suggesting that I might have some tattoo equipment laying around?
I bet. Man, maybe at the next show, we can have a booth set up here, and you could be giving
absolutely.
tattoos. I bet you would.
Pine trees.
Man, you'd have a line of people wanting
pine
tattoos.
trees. Absolutely.
Oh man. So let's talk about, you know, how old were you when you first picked up a saw and started cutting? And especially for a living.
I cut my knee with a partner 5000 on a log landing when I was 11, and my grandpa had to take me to the hospital and get me stitched up. Cut it that bad, and I told him I fell on an axe, not the chainsaw. But when I pulled my pant leg open, he's like, "Yeah, you cut yourself with a chainsaw. That's not an axe, you know."
Why did you want to say that you cut it on an axe and not a chainsaw?
Because he was a stickler about how you handle the chainsaw. We didn't wear chaps, you know, but he was a stickler about, you know, don't be walking in brush. Watch where you're standing. Don't be cutting next to your legs. And you know, that's, gosh almighty, I'm 44 years old, so, you know, do reduction there and go back to when I was 11. I mean, safety wasn't a big thing. People said, hey, watch out, you know, for hangers and widowmakers and barber chair, and watch where you're running that chainsaw. But other than that, we didn't have no safety. You know, there wasn't no manual. I didn't know nothing about that stuff. So fast forward, you know, trying to get away from that type of work. You know, I tried the rock quarry for about a year, which is a local job there in Madison County. Moved on to some service work. Tried my hand at machining, you know, machine shop, because I was interested in that. Like I said, I'm a maker. So makers wind up with chainsaws and milling machines and lathes and tattoo equipment and all this stuff in their basement, right? But to get to the root of the story, I tried everything, but I kept going back. You know, I just couldn't get sawdust out of my blood. So
that's cool.
We ended up going back to it, and graduated from felling timber in a production environment from my early 20s. You know, I started climbing when I was 16, and it was, you know, putting cables in trees to pull trees over off of power lines. Helped my uncles do a little bit of rigging and stuff. But by the time I was 20, I was like engaged. You know, I'm like, okay, this is the path. I want to be a climber.
Some people, it takes people a lot longer to find that path. So to have it at 20, you know, you're able to put in a lot of good years of perfecting your craft.
Yeah. And truthfully, I was really involved, like from 16 to 18, I was, you know, trying to find that person that could show me the most about it. You know, I had cousins and uncles that worked for the power company. That was the first introduction. I actually still have my first tree saddle. It was a 2D ring Miller. It didn't even have side Ds. It just has the sling seat with 2 Ds on your seat.
Got it.
And we free climbed to the top of the tree and tied in. Had one rope. You let the 4-foot tail off of your Blake sitch, and you doubled around the spar and tied a figure 8 knot or whatever on your other D for a safety to hold you in, because it's for work positioning. So
wow, times have changed.
Oh man. So kind of, you know, between 16 and 18, my uncles introducing me to climbing, putting cables in trees to get trees down on logging jobs. And kind of progressing toward, hey, there's a better way to do this.
Yeah.
I met up with a guy, he came from Asheville area, His name was Van Williams. He jerked out the first 4D ring safety test harness I'd ever seen, and a legit climbing line, like a 16 strand. I was like, that's the stuff right there. No more 3 strands for me. That's the rope, and still time Blake stitches, but he had a pulley under it, to tend his slack, and the first set of climb hooks I'd ever seen. And went and done a couple jobs with him, and I made up my mind right there. This is what I'm going to do.
Was he teaching you a lot?
Well, he wasn't a teacher, but I'm a learner.
Yeah.
So everybody's my teacher. If you have wisdom or if you have knowledge, you don't have to teach me because I'm a learner. I'm always looking to learn, and if you're doing that thing that I think will help me, whether you're teaching or not, I'm watching you. I'm watching every move you make. I'm calculating it so precisely, and I'm going to do one better. I'm going to perfect what you're doing. I'm going to make that better. So everybody that I've ever been around has been my teacher.
That's awesome.
Good or bad.
Good or bad. That's important. You learn just as much from the bad as you do the good.
Absolutely.
You do. Yeah. Nice. I see where this guy gets it over there, Tanner.
Hey man, I mean, I've learned a whole lot working with this guy, contracting with him and Craig and the other guys out here in this area, and man, there's so much more they have to offer, to the world, and people like this, man, they're gems. You got to work with them. They've been in the industry their whole life.
Yeah.
30 plus years, and they got all this knowledge stored up. And you can't get it all working with them.
Yeah.
2 days here, 2 days there. For a year at a time. You need to work with them every day for like years.
Yeah.
He's a man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I love sharing.
Good.
I think the industry needs more people that'll share good information, I guess you would say.
And we need to get you on some social media so you can share it to the whole world.
Yeah, that's what everybody says, but I'm anti-social media, so what do we do with that?
Oh, man. Well,
I'm afraid I'll become popular.
Here, you would become popular. You would like it. No, what you do is we'll get you out there. You create some videos, you send to me, and I'll get them posted for you out there. Then you don't have to deal with it, and we'll get you out there to some cool videos and some stuff you want to teach on. I'll put you on the our Two Tree Guy Instagram post out there.
So to kind of shed more light on what we were talking about earlier, at a young age, I found myself contract climbing before contract climbing seemed to be a thing, and I was just talking to some guys over here earlier about doing crane work. It seemed like we were doing crane work here in Henderson County 20 years ago, or 10 years before it got popular. We were doing crane work and felt like we'd mastered the techniques of crane work. We're not doing straight up and down spars, stems. No disrespect to anybody that does that, but until you get into one of our big mature white oaks that's hanging out over top of a couple $1 million home, and it's all tangled and twisted, and you got to rig that thing down with a crane, it changes the game a bit out there. So you perfect your craft. And there's some good information out there about crane work these days. But like I say, back in the day, you would not found a YouTube video of anybody doing crane work. And so we were out here in this little pocket by ourselves, isolated from the world, it felt like. But we thought we had embarked on this adventure that, nobody else had. But obviously people have. And then just surrounded myself with people as I worked up. I spent a little time training for a company, Carolina Tree Care. You might be familiar with that. They service North Carolina and South Carolina. Jack Guffey was a great guy. Mike Schronk was their safety director. And he spent a few days around me, and he just told me right off the hip, he's like, look, man, that you got to come train for us. I was like, I don't know about that, all the travel and stuff. He's like, I don't care what you think. Like, we need you. And I said, well, let's just try it for a day or two. Let me come introduce me to some people. So I went down to Concord and met the team, and it was like 3 or 4 weeks later I was training for them, and I got introduced to Scott Profit, North American Training Solutions. Introduced to Team Husqvarna, Gent Simmons, Kerry Shepard, that whole group. So done a lot of hanging out with those guys down at the Husky Lab. Spent a lot of time with Scott Profit. They did a lot of training for the Carolina Tree Care and some other, surrounding areas. And when I got hooked up with those guys, North American, I was able to go to some of those trainings. Cheryl Tree, Tim Bushnell was there at the time.
Okay.
We're talking a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
But went and done some demos with Tim Bushnell. So started getting to where people's like, hey, I know that Jonathan guy over there. He's a pretty cool dude. But ultimately, I wanted to go down that path. And then this opportunity popped up for me to become a vegetation manager for a well-known company, French Broad Electric. It's an electrical co-op in Madison County. Killer benefits, killer insurance. Well, now I'm their vegetation manager. I have about 60 guys that work under me, 3 different contractors that do tree work every day.
Wow. So you work for the power company.
I work
overseeing the tree crews.
I have 40,000 customers, 3,000 miles of line that I'm responsible for.
Wow. How long have you been doing that?
Going on 11 years this September.
Good for you. That's awesome. Because, out west, working with, big utility company, PG&E, to hear someone like yourself being in it for 11 years, they're switching every 6 months to 8 months. So it's really hard to get to build that relationship with an individual because their philosophy is to change them, put them in a new position so they get, well-versed within the company. But, for someone like yourself being there for 11 years, I bet you've made some drastic changes in probably how things have been done and learn from your own mistakes too.
Yes, most definitely. I've tried to really change the face of it from a safety standpoint. Just some of the contractors that work for us, they get waxed, and we try to vet who's working for us, the contractors. So just making sure they're following proper procedures and being safe. And even though they're contracted to us, I still have those opportunities to train, to hop out of the truck. Because I'm a hands-on guy. I'm not the guy that rides around and points and gives you a map and says, hey, go do this job. I'll roll up on the job and get dirty with you.
Nice.
I break out my climbing gear at least once a week and smoke 2 or 3 trees for them, because they respect you more.
That's good.
If you get out there and smoke a couple of trees real quick, and they're like, dang, this guy can climb too. He just don't give orders. He can do the work.
The company's good with that?
Oh, totally. Yeah, they encourage it.
PG&E would have been like, nope.
Nope. They encourage it.
That's good. That's good.
We got parameters because they're contractor insurance barriers, so I have to set up my own kind of work zone or decide where they're, that way we're not going to be interfering with
them.
Work.
Now, let me talk on that part. With yourself being in there and over 11 years working with these contractors, have you seen a drastic change from the time you were there to now on just maybe safety alone, near misses, any injuries, things like that? Is there improvements that you're making just with technology, with training, with innovations within our industry, that it's getting better?
Yeah, definitely getting better. A lot of those guys that we have contracting for us come from that same background I came from, just good old boys, off the creek.
Yeah.
And they come in and they come from a background of, we don't wear chaps or hard hats or any of that.
And it's different for the utility company.
It's different.
Yeah.
You got to, you get written up if you don't. So getting them to buy in, so we had an incident with a pruner last year. A guy laid a pruner on a cone. He propped it up beside a chipper. And another guy was dragging some brush, and it caught the rope on the pruner. And when he shoved the brush into the chipper, it sucked that pruner rope into the chipper. And the next guy walking up, when that drum caught that rope, it snatched it in at 3,000 RPMs. And that pruner literally took a chunk out of his leg on his right side. I got some pretty nasty pictures of it. And so little things like that, it was like, if he'd have had a pair of chaps on, even though he wasn't running the chainsaw, that chaps would have took the brunt, but he wasn't running the saw. He was just chipping brush.
So is that a protocol your company puts in place now, that everybody on the ground has to wear chaps, or what was kind of the mitigation in the future?
Well,
that
the mitigation in the future was, just don't have anything that's synthetic rope material anywhere near that chipper, so pretty much, unless you have somebody policing that job site, our policy is if you've got a rope out, if that chipper's running, we try to keep the length of that rope away from the chipper.
Got it.
Now, obviously, if we're in, some little lady's yard doing a round over or whatever, I know we're plording. If we're plording a tree for the power company in the yard, you're going to be in closer quarters. So we just, have somebody policing that climbing line, making sure, or keep that perimeter away from the chipper. Anything that can get sucked into the chipper. So.
Got it. So where do you see, with your experience in the industry, where do you see our industry kind of heading towards, based on, these type of trade shows that we're going to, the innovation with the gear? What do you think the future holds for our industry?
Well, that's a good question, because we've really talked a lot about that at the company I work for now. It seems like we can't find guys anymore. And if you do find guys, you can't find guys that are bought in, that buy into the industry. They're just there for a paycheck. The perks of that is anybody that's bought into the industry, they've set their sights on greater things. They're wanting to do residential jobs. They're wanting to get involved with a company like Atlas or Academy, the more reputable companies. And they're wanting to be rock star climbers, and you're just not going to get that in the utility world. And so the utility world, they're underpaid. There's just not as much bling there. There's, let me think of how I'd say that better.
Hey guys, you're on the camera right there.
So if you're in the line clearance, you guys could probably vouch for this. Line clearance just don't get the publicity that, residential, somebody doing a crane job, somebody trimming out for a power line. Mm-hmm. So those guys have migrated to, they can make more money doing residential or contract climbing. So the good qualified help has kind of they've went to Albuquerque, so to say, and we're just getting the kind of guys looking for a paycheck. Yeah. They're the hardest to train. Mm-hmm. They're the hardest to,
because they're not as passionate about the industry.
Absolutely.
How do you think you can change that as an organization, or drawing people in? I mean, you came to work for the power company due to benefits, the position. You get to influence a lot of people. How do these tree guys that are coming into the utility, how do you draw them in to come wanting to do this work, you think, and giving them that passion?
The only success that we've had is finding guys that's not been exposed to this side of it yet.
So from the ground up, new. Yeah.
But have a passion to do tree work, to get into tree care. Unfortunately, when they develop a passion for the work, they get on YouTube and they see August Hunnicky chunking down some big tree somewhere, and then they want to go to California and do that too, or join up, or they see, there's just so much good content on YouTube now. You guys watch it, I watch it.
Yeah.
You see this cool stuff, and then they start investigating the gear that the utility, so this contractor, he's buying them the Fano saw instead of the Silky. He's buying them the Buckinghams instead of the Geckos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When they get on YouTube and they see the Geckos and the Silkies and the tree motions and the 24 strand ropes, and what's a zigzag? They're climbing on a Prusik.
Yeah.
And we would die if we had to climb on a Prusik now. Yeah. So when they see that, they're drawn, and then they start seeking out work with companies that have, progressed past that point. So we lose them.
You got it.
Lose them right after we kind of get them hooked.
Got it.
So unfortunately, a lot of these contractors that contract to utilities, sure, if we could hire everybody in-house, I'd try to get them the bling. I'd try to get them the gear, to keep them happy and keep them rolling. But they work for contractors, and they're looking at the dollar figures. Stuff gets broke, they don't care. They leave the rope out, they cut the rope, they drop the chainsaw out of a tree. It's like, we're going to buy them just the bare minimum to get them by.
Yeah.
So, all those good guys, I'll watch them after I've poured a little bit into them. I'll watch them, kind of go to Albuquerque. Albuquerque's where all the good tree guys are.
Good.
He was a lineman too, wasn't he?
I'm not technically a lineman, but I do a lot of line work.
Yeah.
So, I don't have that little paper that says that I'm a lineman, but do everything for the co-op. Operate equipment, line trucks, track hose, help build back power line, work power line in the storm, trim trees, do hazardous removals for them, whatever they need done. I'm that guy.
Well, we're going to have you out to California and do a full-length episode. You're going to do some training out there with us, right?
Yeah, I'd love to.
We'll have some fun out there. I know Tanner will set that up, and he'll be your, apprentice with you to work with the guys, your assistant out there. But we'll have a good course and class out there. But before we get off the show, what kind of wisdom or tips from the top that you can share to the industry and to the people that are listening to this?
Yeah. Above all, be safe. Go with your gut. I developed, I'll share this. I developed this thing about 4 years ago, and I coined the phrase progressive regression. Wow. And it's not that I'm a regressor from things that matter or being unsafe, but I also see our industry, we've added a lot of glitter to what we do. And sometimes we can dust that glitter off and get down to the bare bones of what we do, and we're more productive. So we can't, to me, I've always been a production guy. When I do a crane job, I want to do that crane job safer than anybody but faster than anybody When I climb a tree, I want to remove that tree safer than anybody but faster than anybody And sometimes we put so much glitter on it. Yeah. Let me define my glitter here. Glitter's when we put 3 more blocks in the system than we need, because it looks good on the Instagram post. Or we make 3 more cuts than we need to make because it looks good on YouTube. So, the industry is plagued with that glitter. And I seen myself kind of standing in that same light, and I started progressively regressing. So as I regressed, as I draw back, I found myself progressing to a better tree man. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So when I started thinking about scenarios and rigging, why would I set A, B, and C up when I can just do A and I can do all that work and it's just a sake? Why would I redirect this 3 times when 1 redirect's fine? Why, if I'm safetied above a chunk that I'm bombing out and I'm tied in above that chunk, why do I spend the time trying to position myself to cut a notch in it when I can just rip it off? It's a removal. Who cares if it peels a little bit of bark off, right? Because I'm bombing that chunk down anyway. So why spend, another 10 minutes trying to get a face cut in it in a bad work position when I can stand on the spar and get in a safe work position and just buzz through the back of that big chunk and let it fall off,
Yeah.
So that to me is progressive regression. And I think that the industry would benefit from a deep class in that. I think it's like yoga. It's soul searching. You need to sit down sometimes and take some deep breaths and think about how many steps do I make in a day that's actually causing me, to work at a slower pace or causing more strain on my body, or how many extra movements have I added to my body in this tree that I could have eliminated. So I've really, like I say, for the last 4 years, if I can share any wisdom, it's progressively regress. I'm not saying go back to a Prusik and a 16 strand.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of that. On removals, I have regressed back to not using a friction saver just because I have the flexibility of moving my rope easier. And some people would say, well, I don't have to worry about burning the candium up. I'm removing that tree. Well, it's going to add a little friction, not if you pick the right crotch. Okay, well, you're burning up your climbing rope. Well, I'd rather sacrifice a climbing rope and gain that edge of being productive and smooth, you know what I'm saying, versus fumbling around with a friction saver. Yeah, if I'm doing a pruning job, I'm going to hang a friction saver, get that smooth, but I'm moving. Tanner's seen it. You know, there's times that I look at a friction saver and I look at a tree and I chuck it back in the box, you know, and I go up the tree and do what I got to do.
Yeah.
But I can flip that thing from this crotch to this crotch with ease, and I took one piece of equipment out of the equation. Did it make me any less safe? Not at all. It didn't. It's just something I don't have to do.
That's something that stuck with me about Johnny here for a long time, and you know, I see it all the time working with guys out in the field. They're like, oh, we need the GRCS for this. I'm like, no, you don't. You just need a porter wrap. Or it's like, oh, we need this, we need that. I'm like, you don't even need a porter wrap. And I break out my old 3-strand, and everyone's like, what the heck is that? What's that? What's that? Because I carry a 3-strand with me everywhere I go, because
Amen.
Not all the time you need to hang a block in a tree.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a time I don't have a 3-strand in my box, because when there's 2 or 3 limbs up there and they're small, they're not going to do that much damage, period, to the tree.
Yeah.
When you're rigging a really small limb, you know, and there's ways to add friction in the tree to where you can take a sizable 400-pound piece and one person hold it on the ground with 2 fingers.
Absolutely.
Easily. And it blows people's minds. And I've worked at Atlas and, you know, done that on several occasions. People's like, oh, whoa, what the heck? Like, you know, it's like it blows their mind because they're used to hanging blocks, setting up the G, setting up the quarter wrap. You don't need all that extra stuff. Just simplify it. Yeah, you need it. Like, there's literally been 3 times in my career where I've actually needed a G. People ask for that stuff all the time. All the time. I can do everything you can do with that with a porter wrap and probably a lot quicker. Because you're just overcomplicating the system. You know, if your rigging point's right, and yeah, like you're saying, instead of setting up 3 blocks, you know, I know from experience that's going to hold with 1 block, you know. But a lot of people, even on small removals, sometimes there might be a tree, it's a small removal, and I might, you know, set a 3-strand remotely from the ground with, you know, my throw line and just tip tie that whole removal. And guess what? I didn't have to pull out any rigging. All I did is tip tied everything, lowered it to the ground, and by the time I hit the ground, I just pull out my rope and I'm done. I ain't got to go back up, grab no block. I ain't got to do all this extra stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's a motto to live by right there, you know.
Progressive regression.
Yeah, progressive regression. So, and I live by it every day, man. And I keep things simple. And, you know, people call me cowboy, old school, whatever. It's not. You know, I know all the technical stuff. I can do trolley rigging. I can do all this other stuff if I need it. But do I need it?
Yeah.
You know, it's all about, you know, the glitter. You know, what looks cool, right?
Well, let us see this, though. There is an application for all of that stuff. There is. And probably once a week we ran into a scenario where we do use the GRCS. We do run several redirects. We do guy trees for extra support. We do all that. But we only break it out when it's necessary.
Yeah.
So regressing back to that point, and like Tanner said, using a 3-strand to rig stuff down, I take wraps. If you know how to take a wrap in a tree, that's an old school trick, but you can set up enough friction on a cut you're making on a removal that the guy on the ground can, you know, just depending on how much pressure he applies to that wrap. It's just the old above cross wrap.
I mean,
rig to the piece.
I mean, just stuff like that, you know, it just blows people's minds, because I'll be out in the field with these guys, you know, training and stuff, and they're like, hey, man, you got that? You need help? I'm like, no, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's good. You know, I'm adding friction through that crotch. That's a pretty big crotch. I can take this 400-pound piece because I'm redirecting it around the trunk of the tree, and it's butter, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to keep things simple, man.
Yeah.
Don't need all the glitter.
Yeah. They're
say
removals, you know?
Yeah. People say, why do you use that old 3-strand? I said,
that's my favorite rope.
Yeah,
man,
I'm not going to jerk out my Samson stable braid and just smoke the jacket on it, you know, But let's be honest, if I'm in a removal that I can move that rope around as I need to and not mess with a block and natural crotch it, I'm going to smoke that rope in about 5 or 6 removals. But I assure you, at the end of the day, I made way more money with that 3-strand. It's negligible.
I get it.
It's negligible.
Progressive regression.
But like he's saying, there's on a lot of our removals, the bigger removals, that might be on like 1 or 2 trees a week.
Yeah.
But a lot of the other ones, we're setting up rings, we're adding friction, we're saving the ropes, we're using blocks as well. But it's just like simplifying things, back to the root. You know what I'm saying? Progressive regression.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there you guys have it, man. Jonathan, good stuff. That was good stuff. Good stuff.
Be looking forward
good
for that
job,
full
co-host.
cast. Hey,
man.
Wait till we get Johnny on this full podcast episode.
We will. We'll
he
have
comes out to Rosa and trains with us, man.
We'll have a
good.
good time. Well, guys, you heard it here, man. What's your story? Jonathan Hensley, that's here, telling some real truth and hearing your story, and there's a lot more to it for sure. But if you guys got something out of this today, you learned something, you had a laugh, you want to share it with somebody. That's the feed of the show. Don't just take it and take. Give back, just like these individuals came on the show to give you some nuggets and some information from that. We appreciate you guys listening to the show, and remember to continue to elevate the standard of our industry through safety, training,
and innovation.
Oh, gotcha. Good job. All right, we'll see you guys till next time. Bye.
See ya. Thank you.